and they beat them the year before. I think they'll beat them this year. The question is, what's LeBron's future? And I think that if I was Cleveland Cavaliers, I did the right thing. I rolled the dice. I think Isaiah Thomas is just for this year, isn't he? Is this contract?
Yeah,
up, right?
this is the end of Isaiah Thomas's contract. This is last year. That's what I was saying. He's a rental basically this year, and I think that's probably where Danny Ainge he leveraged that. Yeah, he's a, or that's where Cleveland try to leverage it with Danny Ainge. He's a rental. If not, you're just going to lose him. So he had to trade Thomas. He had to trade Isaiah Thomas because they needed to give up a point guard to get a point guard. But the thing is, he's giving up a better point guard than he's getting a point guard. He's getting a better scorer, but he's not getting a good point guard in return. But that's the thing is now he's also giving up a guy that has a pretty high ceiling, I think, in Jay Crowder. And then he's giving up a guy that we don't know who it could be, but he's probably going to be pretty. He could probably be pretty decent if it's any testament to kind of the depth of this last year's draft. A guy in the first round next year. So we'll see where that falls, because if it falls in the first half, we could see something pretty good. I mean, this year they're saying that, they think that they should have some guys in the second round that might actually pan out, make some NBA rosters this season. Not make a huge, impact or anything, but we'll make rosters. So, it's going to be an interesting year. I don't know. I'm still not going to play fantasy basketball, so I don't know. It's just too much. Yeah, I'm not even playing fantasy football this year.
I didn't have enough. Well, yeah, I am too. I've got 2 legs, but I didn't have enough prep time because for my Friday show, usually I prep a lot. But for this trade happened so late. One of the things we have to look at is what Danny Ainge stockpiled. I don't think he gave up a lot of what he has stockpiled. He gave up 1 draft pick.
Yeah, one
draft pick.
One of like 13, 16.
He has a bunch, right? I mean, he has tons of draft picks. So he's sitting there going, and by the way, he's not going to draft with those. He's going to deal them, right? And he may not be finished, right? I mean, he can still trade.
Yeah.
I mean, he might be able to deal for somebody else. And I think that the reason that the Cavaliers were compelled to go after Isaiah Thomas was because all the reports say they whiffed on the Paul George deal. They had Paul George if they just pulled the trigger, and that would have been an amazing team.
If Cleveland would have said, we'll go ahead and throw in another. We'll throw in another pick. Go ahead. Yeah, which one do you want? They could have got Paul George.
Right. And they whiffed. They whiffed on that. Right?
Yeah.
They either wanted too much or whatever. But from what I understand, the reports were that Paul George wanted to go to Cleveland, and Cleveland whiffed on that deal. They just didn't make the deal.
Well, he wanted to go to Los Angeles.
Wait a second.
But
eventually.
He wants to go to Los Angeles. That's understood. If he was going on a 1-year basis, he'd prefer go play with LeBron, get himself potentially a title real quick, and then head out west when that salary cap opens up and the Lakers can pay him big money on free agency. Instead of getting him on a 1-year deal and spending even more on him, because I guess the Lakers are being investigated for potential tampering in the situation, because it was pretty widely reported that he wants to go there and that they want him there, and that the idea is from people that have talked with Magic and the heads of the Lakers that they'll let him go for this year, and they're going to get him in free agency next year, so they're not overpaying for him. It's kind of an understood thing. Now, Paul George has come out and said, hey, I'm not guaranteed that I'm going to go to Los Angeles. Maybe I like it where I'm at. I don't know. I could stay. So again, is that maybe some kind of, hey, look over here, nothing to see? Maybe, but at the same time, he's making it. If he wins a title, with Cleveland. What says he wouldn't leave? He wouldn't stay. I mean, if he's in the Western Conference Finals with OKC, who's to say he wouldn't stay in OKC? I don't know. He's been in small markets his whole career. Who's to say he wouldn't stay?
That's not a big adjustment for him now. Well, but here's the conspiracy theory, right? Or the theory of where people think this is going is, okay, so if the Bulls buy out Dwayne Wade, which is speculated that they will, right? So does Dwayne Wade now go to Cleveland, play a year? LeBron plays out his 1 year, right? Isaiah Thomas plays out his year. Paul George plays out his year at OKC, and they all go to Los Angeles. Now, that's a reasonable scenario. That is not an outlandish scenario now that it's transpired, right? Because if you look at that team and you'd have now Dwayne Wade would be a backup. I mean, he's old. I mean, he's not a lead guy anymore. But
Kevin,
that's
reasonable.
Right there. They've got LeVar Ball.
That's reasonable.
And they've got Ball.
That's a reasonable scenario. I would hate to see what you price stuff at your garage sales. That's a reason. Like, all four of those guys leave for Los Angeles for the Lakers.
I mean,
I don't know if it's reasonable.
If you look at how it all lines up, though, but
definitely plausible. It's possible.
Under contract after this year, right? No. One of those guys is under contract after this year. Not one of them, right?
Yeah.
And I don't even know what Chris Paul's situation is, right? And there's one other guy we haven't even talked about, Carmelo Anthony. Okay, so
I think
Magic Johnson and
he has 2 years left, though.
I'm pretty much convinced he is tampering. Carmelo, Magic Johnson is tampering because he's the guy. He can talk to anybody. He is tampering under the letter of the law because he's talking to guys because he's Magic Johnson, right?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's like back in the day when when
he takes the Trump approach. He literally will tweet it out and say, "Hey, this is what I think. This is what I think." He trumps it. He does what the president does. He just tweets it out what he thinks should happen. And because he's not directly having a conversation with him, he could talk his way around it.
Right. So let's look at this dream team: Carmelo Anthony, LeBron James, CP3, Paul George, and Isaiah Thomas could come or go, but that's what you're talking about. And you put him around this guy that's going to play a season by then. That's Ball. We don't know how good he's going to be, right? We don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And if he's great, then you've just got a really good guy. If he's not, the Lakers will deal with him. Right? That's what they'll do.
Yeah.
And so, all those guys I mentioned, every one of them. And now Anthony's under contract, but he can be traded because he has a no trade clause, but he can be traded. And they were already looking to deal him. So, look at that. Listen, I think it's probably, I'm going to say 60% done deal. That's if LeBron wants to leave Cleveland. Right? LeBron drives this train, right? And the fact that he hasn't said he's not leaving leads you to believe that he is. And by the way, I guess my point before of saying how great a player LeBron is, he's earned the right to go wherever he wants to go.
Yeah.
Right? He owes nobody anything. He brought a title to Cleveland. He came back.
Play this cut real quick from TMZ. They caught up with LeBron. It says LeBron on New York. Blake Griffin was saying over the weekend, I guess, that that LeBron wants to come home to Los Angeles. So that's kind of been the talk. And LeBron has made some comments about going home to Los Angeles. He lives most of the off season, in California.
In LA. Yeah.
And he still has his Akron home. So even when he was in Miami, he was still coming up once a week to Cleveland or on off days. So he wouldn't be in Miami all the time. When he was playing, on the off stretches, he would fly up and he would be in his home in Akron. So I'm going to play this cut real quick.
Okay.
All right. Did that come across? I don't think it played. Okay. Anyways, essentially they caught up with him in New York and told him about it. He basically said, I don't know what you're talking about. But he has a big shit-eating grin on his face. So, I mean, there you have it. Yeah, I think it's he thinks it's comical.
A media company. I mean, listen. Well, this is why I challenge people that always poke holes guys and criticize. Doesn't everyone aspire to control their own destiny? Don't all of us aspire to have that kind of control and autonomy? So why are we begrudging LeBron James? I mean, he's earned it. He's worked hard for it. He's excelled at his craft. Why are we criticizing LeBron James? Do we criticize Jack Nicholson? Do we criticize Robert De Niro? Do we criticize Meryl Streep? Do we criticize Matt Damon? Do we criticize these guys? Do we criticize Justin Bieber? Do we criticize Taylor Swift? Do we criticize? Well, okay. Do we criticize Bono? Do we criticize Mick Jagger?
I'm not a huge Bono. I don't really care for you too. I may be one of the only people that will ever say that.
I understand that, but what I'm saying is, but you don't sit around going, "Oh, that song sucked. He phoned it in on that. That concert wasn't that great."
Oh yeah, I wouldn't say that.
James to a standard far beyond other people. We really do. For some reason, I don't know why it is. But he's a really good basketball player. That's all I know. He's a good basketball player, a really good basketball player. And for some reason, we go, oh well, he doesn't get to do what. I mean, Michael Jordan left the Bulls to play baseball, for goodness sakes, at the height of his career, and then he came back. He won fewer championships, and then he went to the Wizards and stunk it up.
You want to hear something really crazy about Michael Jordan in baseball? I think we've learned that Tim Tebow is a better baseball player than Michael Jordan.
Oh yeah, yeah. Statistically speaking, yes, and exactly. And so all of a sudden, but we never criticize Michael Jordan because it's Michael Jordan. I'm just saying that I believe that LeBron James gets an unfair rap. That's all I'm saying, and I'll defend that as far as I have to. I'll just say that I believe he's unfairly scrutinized beyond what his ability would dictate. Because I'll tell you one thing: if you're sitting there on your couch listening to this show, and you haven't been to 8 NBA Finals, shut up. Shut up, because you don't know. You haven't been there. I mean, when you get to your 8th NBA Final, you come talk to me, and then we can have a conversation. Because you're sitting there eating chips, and you're probably 30 pounds overweight,
I think our listeners are kale type
go.
of people, Kevin. I think we kale chips. They're kale chips.
Okay, kale, whatever. But if you're sitting there eating chips on your couch and you're not doing something to make yourself better every single day like LeBron James does, then, I'm just saying, because that's the rap he gets, and you're going, God knows. Okay, let's just say he's top 10 of all time. I'll give you a break. I'll name 8 other players and Michael Jordan. Holy crap! Are you the top 10 of whatever you do? Now, if you are, give me a call and I'll say, cool, we can talk. But if you're not the top 10 sales guy in whatever you do in the entire world, shut up. I'm just saying, because whatever. I mean, you don't get a vote because I'm looking at guys that are good and they all excel. They all work hard. All those guys we mentioned that might end up on the Lakers, they've earned it. You know how hard that is, right? You and I both. We both play competitive sports. You know how hard that is to get to the level they are. It's ridiculously hard. There's guys come out of college that can't miss, no miss. They're nowhere to be found. And LeBron James has been at the forefront of the publicity since he was 13 years old, and somehow found a way to. And Michael Jordan didn't even start on his varsity basketball team until he was a senior. LeBron James has been under the microscope since he was 13 years old, and he found a way to excel. So there you go. I'll get off my high horse. We'll talk about something else. But that's just.
I don't want you to get too far off your high horse.
That's my rant. Well, you said earlier that you were expecting a rant from me at some point tonight.
Well, a Mac rant. There you go. Your Mac rant of the week. I don't see any. No. Neither of the two polls. I didn't see any Mac teams that made it. Looks like the closest Mac team to get anywhere near something called a ranking in Division One, Tulsa, Western Michigan. They got respectively 10 and 9 or 10 and 8 votes for the coaches poll.
Tulsa's AAC, but I mean, I think if
that's right, Toledo. It's Toledo, but they didn't get any votes. Toledo got 1 vote. I'm sorry.
Hadn't bailed for Minnesota, they might be in there because he left. But you'll get my Mac rant during the season because that's when they start to actually.
It's
some upsets and actually
it's pre-Mac season. You gotta warm those rants up. I mean,
I'm going to say it right now. This might be a down season for the MAC. Oh, I know. There you go. You're like, oh, you're making excuses.
Well, if it's anything like your prediction on the down seasons for Alabama, then they're probably going to do pretty good.
Well,
and in fairness, we've both predicted Alabama having 2 losses for like the last 3 years, and they have still every single year.
Eventually. Yes, but eventually it should happen. But I did pick Clemson to win the national championship last year. You know that. I said on this show.
Yes, you
remember,
did.
I picked them and they did win. Now, I didn't come close to the other 3, but no, I don't see a really strong MAC team this year. I think they'll be competitive in their conference. I don't see a lot of that going on. I do see. If you want to talk about a mid-major conference that can make some noise, it's the AAC with South Florida.
I don't think it's a mid-major. I think again that was the Big East, the major teams from the Big East. Also, Louisville was part of the AAC, but they left to go to the ACC. So they would have been a part of that too, and I think TCU was also part of that conference for 1 year and then left. So there's been the conference realignments kind of screwed some things up. The funny thing is we might be talking about this next offseason, and USF is part of the Big 12. which I think is inevitable. If they don't, if the Big 12 doesn't add USF, it was a huge mistake and a huge miss on their part. Because
it's the only Florida team to expand their footprint, right? I mean,
yeah.
They've already got West Virginia, so they need a partner team for West Virginia in the East. And if you want to expand recruiting into the state of Florida, which is still even with the diminished state of high school football these days, it's still a huge state for football. You want to pick somebody there, and they're the most likely candidate, because UCF isn't nearly as strong as USF. They don't have quite the metropolitan area, although they do have their own stadium, which USF has yet to pull the trigger on that. Right?
They're still okay. So I saw the first renderings of the stadium. They have it, but they're still trying to pick the location. They're down to 3 different locations. The one that's probably most likely would be where the current Mosey Center is, the Museum of Science and Music, the Museum of Science and Industry. I think that's what it is, Mosey.
Oh yeah, are they going to move that? Are they looking to move that?
They're going to tear that building down, and Mosey's going to open up something else downtown. This is what I've heard. Move downtown, and then they'll build a stadium there. Now, that land is owned by the county, so they could still serve alcohol because it's owned by the county and not on school property.
County?
Yes. It's owned by Hillsborough County.
Hillsborough County?
Yes. So
okay.
The land would basically be donated by the county to them, or leased. One of the two.
And as you know, I lived in Tampa for 6 years, so I'm pretty familiar with the geography and topography and all that. So yeah, that would be interesting. I mean, an on-campus facility for South Florida would be huge, because right now they're still playing at Raymond James Stadium. Is it still called Raymond James Stadium, or did they change the name of that place? Okay,
it's still Raymond James. They just re-upped it for, I think, another 5 years. This past year.
Aren't they looking at a new facility in Tampa as well?
Who? The Buccaneers?
No, the retractable roof. The Glazer family.
No, the Bucs are building an indoor practice stadium, which is partially completed. If you watch the episode of Hard Knocks, you'll see. Yeah, they're building at the very end. You know how? Have you been to One Buck before? I don't know if it was just built when you were here or not.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know how you go out the back of One Buck? You have the 3, was it 4 full-size football fields behind there? Or 3, actually. 3. And then right after them, there's a whole bunch of room, still like just empty lot. And basically they they butted it up right to the end of the property line where they could legally have it set back. So they didn't lose really any usable practice field, and they were able to put in an indoor practice field, which should be the size of at least one full-size football field. I don't think they can fit 2, but they'll probably paint it up to where they could have half fields and a full field, depending on the way that they utilize it. But it's a pretty massive facility. They own a lot of the land there, and that was a big part of when they got the new stadium and acquiring that land there. I believe that there was the old Tampa Bay Mall was there, and they cleared that out to build One Buck and the practice.
Is One Buck across the street from the Yankees? The minor league, the stadium,
the Yankees. Steinbrenner Field. Steinbrenner Field's on the corner of MLK and Dale Mabry. Across the street from that is one of the main parking lots, the north parking lot for Raymond James Stadium. That's usually where they have Summerfest every year. They have a bunch of Summerfest concerts. And then right after that
They won the
is
Super Bowl.
yeah, they owned all of that. Now they sold a big portion of that, or leased a big portion of that to, I want to say it's American Heart Association, or cancer. It's a complex for doctors' offices. And then just after that, they sold or rented out a part to build a Panera Bread is there. But the thing is, like, for USF games, Jesuit High School runs all of that, and they get part of the proceeds for parking for Bucks games and USF games. So they help usher in people to parking spots, and they get a portion of that from what I've seen. But One Buck is right after that series, and just after the Panera Bread, there was another set of 3 or 4 store office buildings, just before you get to One Buck. They just own a tremendous amount of land, and the parking lot was already big enough, I guess, for what they needed. Because again, so the Yankees practice fields, plural, they're not the stadium, not San Mary's Stadium. The practice fields go from Columbus up about 3 blocks, and then it abuts up right to the south parking for Raymond James Stadium, which that alone, they would use part of that for the trailers and stuff for Monster Jam. So they own it. The Bucks have control over a massive amount of land, and if they wanted to build a new stadium, they would basically do what they did last time around, and they would just probably build it in one of the existing either north or the south lot, and then
level Raymond James and
exactly.
then make that parking again. So right, that's what they would do, right?
Yeah,
which is what they did with the old stadium.
But that's not.
I moved to
that's
Tampa
not really in
the
conversation right now.
Okay. But that stadium's awesome. I don't know why they.
And they just put in, and you haven't even seen the new video boards. They put in new video boards this last year, and updated the sound system. I'm not for sure what renovations that they put in this. They put in the video stuff last year. This year, I'm not for sure exactly what other new renovations and stuff. They did some. They did for this season. It wasn't as major as last year. But they continue to upgrade. Oh yeah, this year the upgrade was they built a Hall of Fame, actually a Hall of Fame suite section, to where you could purchase tickets to the Hall of. I think it's called the Hall of Fame suite. I have to take a look. Contact. Hey, we still have some tickets left. I'm like, credentials left? Do you have any credentials left? No? Okay. I really want to buy tickets. I wanted credentials. Whatever. Yes. Yeah, it's back to kind of what we were talking about. USF having an on-campus or near-campus stadium does change things a bit. For the college moving forward, as far as just the way they recruit. I mean, having it closer to campus changes things for students and stuff too. That area has been building up around USF. There's more places, more restaurant. I mean, there's always a lot of stuff to do over there. The University Mall has been getting a facelift, and stores are starting to go back in there again. So it'll be interesting to see what that would do again, but that's about 5 years or so away at least, according to according to officials at USF. So,
well, in conferences, especially the Big 12, which is used to their schools having on-campus facilities, right? It's more attractive to a conference when they have an on-campus facility because they control it. Now, the Pac-12, little different situation, right? Because you have USC and UCLA, which play at the Coliseum in the Rose Bowl. You've got Arizona State. That stadium is kind of on campus, but it's kind of not. It's adjacent to campus. You have a little bit different situation in the Pac-12 with the stadium situations. But the Big 12, I think, would really like, even if USF said, we're going to build an on-campus facility, they'd like that better. But, at the end of the day, the Big 12 is a wild card right now, Matthew, in college football. They're gonna drive what happens in realignment in the next 2 or 3 years because, many of us, me included, can envision, 4 18-team conferences, right? And the winners comprise the college football playoff. But you got 5 right now. And so what happens with the Big 12? So either do something there, or you've got to expand the playoff. Because let me tell you something: as soon as the Big 10 and SEC gets left out of the playoffs, it's going to hit the fan, right?
Yeah.
And to date, only the Big 12. And to date, only the Big 12 and Pac-12 have been left out. The big ones haven't been left out yet. The ACC, the SEC, and the Big 10 have had a team in every year. So, and by the way, the Big 10 squeaked in the first year with Ohio State and ended up winning it. But, as soon as the SEC or Big 10 get left out, it's all hell breaks loose because that they won't abide by that. And so, I've maintained you've got to go to 6, you've got to go to 8, and I think you cap it there. You don't go any further than that. But you can't exclude the top revenue producing conferences in college football from the playoff. Can you imagine? March Madness not having an ACC team in the March Madness? I mean, come on, right? I mean, exactly. I mean, can you imagine that? That can't possibly happen. And so, as far as I'm concerned, you can't do it. And so you've got to expand it. And I know people have said, "Oh, you're not going to," and the football playoff committee doesn't. But and think of this scenario. Think of a scenario where the Big 10 and the SEC are left out, and you bring in somebody else like a Notre Dame who runs the table, and all of a sudden they're both out, and you go, "Holy crap, this can't be happening." And they don't want that either. Because if you leave out those 2 conferences, you wipe out the ratings for the college football playoff, right? I mean, who's going to watch that? I mean, who's going to watch Notre Dame play, Washington State in the first round and, West Virginia, play whoever, right? I mean, it's a bad scenario. It's a bad scenario for college football. So I just look at it from a business perspective. You and I both, we write a lot about the business of sports. So it's just a business decision. It's a bad business decision to go, we're going to keep this at 4 teams. I think it is anyway. I mean, because the rest of the games are meaningless. I mean, there's some fun bowl games, but holy crap. You got to get the best teams in. And I could argue the last couple of years that you got a really good team. Oklahoma last year, they won their last 9 games and got left out. Right?
Yeah.
That's not right. That's not good for college football. They were probably playing the best football of anybody, and they get left out. It doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, like the NFL, the major leagues have 30%, 40%, 50% of teams make the playoffs. Yeah. Why not add a couple more teams? I think 6. I actually think 6 is the number. I really do. That gives you 5. That gives you the 5 major conference champions and an at large. And by the way, Notre Dame's going to join the ACC really soon anyway. you're already playing 5 ACC games a year. That's going to happen. And so that just gives you a couple of large teams, or a large team. What if a Boise State or a Houston or somebody runs the table? You get them in the playoffs. That's good for college football. That's how I see it. And you get the top 2 teams a bye, which they will have deserved, right? If Alabama and Ohio State go undefeated and they're the top 2 teams, give them a bye. They've earned it.
Now,
just like they get the bye in the NFL. So
I'm gonna bring James on with this here too, but I want to looking at the top 25, because last year our preseason, obviously you and we've had these conversations, and I believe James feels the same way. There's not a whole lot of value in the rankings for preseason. You need 5 or 6 weeks to really determine a ranking. That's again why the playoff committee waits about that long to make some sort of a decision for their first ranking. But last year we had a lot of teams that were significantly overrated or really fell off. I know the Associated Press put out their top 25 today. The coaches poll, I think, came out last week, preseason.
Yeah.
Who do you see this year besides Virginia Tech that you think is overrated and probably shouldn't or probably won't end up being in the top 25?
But wait. Just say you really thought you were going to flip that by me, didn't you?
I tried. I tried. Almost did.
I'm going to ignore that.
I don't believe it.
Okay.
I don't believe it either. I'm just messing with you.
It is a good question. I mean, and part of it though, Matthew, is when you look at the schedules, right? I mean, that's what you have to look at. I mean, you look at the schedules because Alabama, Florida State play each other the first week. Ohio State, Oklahoma play each other in week 2. Auburn plays Florida. No. Auburn plays Clemson. Florida plays Michigan. This is all the first week or 2 of the season, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you got to look at that and go, wait a second. Oh, USC has a killer first 3 games. So you go, wait a second. All these teams, somebody has to lose. I mean, I think half the top 10 is guaranteed a loss in the first 2 weeks of the season because they play each other. And so, are we looking at who the best teams are right now? We're looking at who has a likely chance to make it all the way through, right?
What,
I mean, that's
was
what
that
we look at.
Was that reference to USC having a first 3 tough games? Was that your poll for the MAC this week? Is that what it is? Because they start with Western Michigan.
Well, yeah, they've got a MAC team. That's always tough first week, right? Because the MAC school is always full of upset. And then they play number 14 Stanford, number 23 Texas, right out of the chute.
Texas number 23.
They're all at home.
How did they get that? How did they get to number 23? Are they just like slipping Houston out and slipping Texas in just because the head coaching changed? But then if you turn it around, I would argue that if Willie Taggart was still at USF, they would still be in the top 20, 25 preseason ranking regardless. USF, and they bring in Charlie Strong. So it's kind of like a lateral move for coach for either way. But Texas is in the top 20, 25. I don't.
It was USF, right? USF's 23, right? 22, 21,
19.
Like but I have to look at scheduling because Texas, I think, is there because the consensus among experts. I'll just say I won't put myself in that boat, but I do watch a lot of college football. The consensus was that they had a lot of talent, and Charlie Strong didn't get the most out of the talent, and they think Tom Herman can. I don't know. We'll have to see. But Texas but Texas is we're gonna know really early with Texas because their schedule's pretty tough. They come out of the chute with some good teams, right? I mean, I want to say they open against Maryland. It's a Big Ten team. True, they're not the best. San Jose State's not very good. Then they travel to USC. We're going to know about Texas pretty soon. I mean, in USC, and I know that Nick Saban was a little bit criticized a couple weeks ago for some of his comments about, well, we should all be playing Power 5 teams. But I give Nick Saban credit because they always open against a good school. They're playing Florida State this year. They played Virginia Tech. They played who did they play last year? Didn't play UCLA last year? No, not UCLA. They played somebody last year. USC. He puts his money where his mouth is. He says we should be playing these, and I agree. I think that the day and age of playing these powder puff teams early in the season, number one, doesn't do the team any good. Number two, it doesn't help your rankings at all because the playoff committee is looking at strength of schedule. I just think that we need to do what Nick Saban said, and many of the schools are already doing it, right? Virginia Tech opens up against West Virginia, Auburn against Clemson, Florida State, Alabama, USC, Texas. I mean, you can name all the Oklahoma State, Pittsburgh, Penn State. Okay, we've got some really, really good games early in the season, and those are the teams that are going to differentiate themselves, I believe. Now your buddy James is he not a Miami guy?
No,
right?
Florida
Miami
State
guy.
James, you can speak for yourself.
Okay.
Welcome in, James.
No, Miami. Okay. Miami. Okay, then Miami's non-conference schedule is embarrassing. Okay, it's an embarrassment for a team of that caliber. Okay, it just is. I mean, they play nobody.
Why is Florida ranked in the top 25? Because they're Florida.
Well, they won their half of the league last year. They're probably better on offense this year than they were last year.
How so? They lose their top. They lost 2 running backs. Even though I would argue their best overall back in Scarlett, he's still there. But they didn't give him carries last year. They probably not going to give him an adequate amount of carries this year. So they lose Callaway for the first game. But other than Callaway, they really didn't have any offense. The offensive line kind of played their way into shape, kind of like you did in the church league. They start off with Michigan.
You asked me why I thought. Well, you asked me why I thought they were ranked. You didn't ask me if I thought they should be ranked.
Yeah, that is true.
If the question was, do I think they should be ranked? I would say maybe in the low, the mid-20s. Okay, because I still don't like the fact that their offense stinks. Okay, they just have no offense. But I'm looking at Miami. Just to go back on my point. They play Arkansas State and Toledo, which I know it's a MAC team, but still from a non-conference perspective, come on, guys, you're one of the top programs in college football, and you're playing those guys. It's just embarrassing to me. I mean, Mark Richt can sit there and go, "We're back," but they're not back if they don't beat anybody that is of any consequence outside their conference. And so I'm sorry, Arkansas State is not of consequence outside their conference, nor is Toledo. I think later in the season,
you're selling Arkansas State.
Yeah, they do play Notre Dame.
So you're selling your stock on Arkansas State.
Huh?
You're selling your stock on Arkansas State. If you're selling it, I'll buy it.
I mean, they're a good team, and they're a bowl team. But listen, everybody makes a bowl game. I mean, 65 teams. It's impossible for 65 to make a bowl game.
There's only 4 teams that matter anymore, remember? It doesn't matter if you make a bowl game or not.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is, come on, Miami, you can't get a better game than Arkansas State and Toledo in your non-conference, depending on who you are. I mean, I'm looking at their own conference.
Toledo was ranked last year. Come on, this is your MAC.
Schools are playing. Yeah, but in all honesty, come on, you got to play better teams than that. I mean, I could see playing Toledo and Tennessee.
Toledo had
Georgia Tech
4 losses last season.
Georgia Tech in their own conference, right?
They lost by 2 to BYU.
Half the league. Georgia Tech non-conference plays Tennessee and Georgia. Okay, that's a pretty good non-conference schedule. Okay, now everybody's gonna have a cupcake in there, but come on. I mean, give me a break. Play somebody. I mean, Miami plays Bethune-Cookman, Arkansas State, and Toledo. I mean, come on. That's embarrassing for a program of their stature to be playing those kind of teams. I mean, it really is. I mean, Pittsburgh, look at Pittsburgh in their own half of the conference, right? Plays Penn State and Oklahoma State in the first 3 weeks. I mean, come on now. That's some stellar competition. That's a real non-conference schedule, right? I mean, so give me a break. It's just embarrassing, I think, for Miami to say, hey, we're a top tier program and you're playing those guys. I mean, come on, that's ridiculous. When you look at who the other teams are playing, right?
Well,
right?
You want to weigh in here?
I mean, that's kind of. I think it's kind of a semi-rarity here for this year. I think Rick is trying to get Miami into getting into the season a little bit easier there with the BCU and Arkansas State matchups before that Florida State game in Tallahassee. But in the future, I mean, you have the kickoff classic this year with Florida and Michigan. Next year will be Miami and LSU. And, they're going to be playing Florida in 2019. Michigan State, they have a home and home with. Texas A&M, they have a home and home with. So, I mean, this is like one of those rare occasions there with Miami. I mean, this is, a program that's played the likes of Tennessee, Oklahoma, UCLA, among others within their program. So I think this year is, one of those years where it's like an outlier.
Yeah,
but sometimes your schedule's weak because the other teams aren't as strong as you think they are. But does anybody in their right mind think that Bethune-Cookman, Arkansas State, and Toledo were really going to be good at some point? You go, we just got them on a down year? I mean, come on.
BCU.
Toledo's been pretty consistent over the last 3 years. Would you not agree with that? Would you? Toledo.
But
remember,
it's not a Big Five. It's not a Big Five conference school.
Okay, so
actually,
tell me.
You know what? That's not necessarily an outlier because remember, Miami at one point did play at Appalachian State.
Yeah.
And this year they're playing at Arkansas State. So it's like, how come they're having these type of games here instead of, traveling? But that'll happen soon enough. I mean, 2020 they're going to be over in East Lansing, Michigan. So. And in 2022, they're going to be in College Station. So I'm like, it'll basically, I'm just waiting it out for that.
Well, let's talk about Arkansas State's schedule. Look at Arkansas State's schedule, though. They start off with Nebraska, then Miami.
Yes, it's a brutal schedule. But if they win the table, they probably should be in the national championship game. But they have a better schedule than half the SEC schools out of conference. But my point is that you've got some schools that year after year open up or have a really good game the first 2 weeks. I'm looking at the teams in their own half of the conference in the Coastal Division of the ACC. Virginia Tech played Ohio State in in home and home 2 years in a row. They played Alabama. You know, you've got Clemson plays Auburn. You've got, I mean, I'm looking at the schedule.
Yeah.
You know, you've got Virginia Tech playing West Virginia. You got, I mean, I'm just talking about the teams. Florida State against Alabama. I mean, come on. What's Miami got here? Now, so my point is, at the end of the season, let's just say Miami goes 11-1 and gets in the conference championship game. Should they be in consideration for the playoffs because their non-conference schedule was crap, right? I'm talking about the.
Well, I mean, that goes into the whole thing with the preseason poll then, because I mean, if I'm not mistaken, Miami is ranked in the preseason poll right now. So
18.
If they have that game against Florida State, right? They have that game against Florida State, third game of the season. Whether Florida State is undefeated at that time or not, you know, or only has one loss, you know, say Miami loses that game and then runs the rest of the table and then has another game against Florida State. And if Florida State only has that one loss to Alabama, then I don't think the College Football Playoff Committee is going to, you know, pass up on a one-loss ACC champion. I don't think so.
Yeah, but Florida State will have played Alabama and Florida. I mean, I'm just looking at the schedule. I mean, dude, Miami's schedule is woefully inadequate. I mean, they do play Florida State, but they don't play Clemson or they don't play Louisville. You know, I mean, I'm just looking at it from that perspective. They play Syracuse at Duke. You know, I mean, it's a tough road for Miami. Now, don't get me wrong. I think Miami's going to be really good. I think the critical game for Miami, as a Virginia Tech fan, anyway, it's going to be November 6th against Virginia Tech. I mean, that may very well be for the Coastal Division title, but the Coastal is always a pretty much more of a crapshoot because you got 3 or 4 teams. This year you got Miami, Virginia Tech, Georgia Tech, probably all in the mix for that. But I'm just talking about now. Obviously, hopefully, looking forward, Miami's got better schedules because they should. I mean, the caliber of program that they are, they should do better than that. I mean, don't you agree? I mean, I understand going forward, but I'm just trying to get. They really should be playing a better schedule than that. I mean, because the committee's going to go, you know, Florida State played Alabama.
I mean, Florida has that type of schedule every year.
Oh, I'm not. I can take pot shots, and I will. My blog next week will be, you know, I'm going to take pot shots at all the teams that have cake schedules, right?
Are you doing your big boy pants and diapers?
They're not alone. Yes. I mean, Michigan State, Bowling Green, they start off with a couple of MAC teams, but you also have the dynamic of the conferences that have 9 conference games versus the ones that have 8. The ACC has 8 conference games. With only 8 conference games, you've got to play a couple of better non-conference games, right? The Pac-12 and the Big Ten have 9 conference games as well as the Big 12. So you really only have one shot at a good non-conference game, even though USC stepped up and they got the big boy pants on this year, right?
Yeah.
As does Oklahoma State. You know, there's some big boy schedules out here, and so I think that if you're really going to do this thing right, you've got to get some more consistency. And the NCAA, of course, doesn't regulate schedules. They have no control over this, right? So there is no controlling body over this, which is part of the problem with the game as I see it right now, right? There's too much inconsistency, especially when there's so much money at stake, right? I mean, there's a lot of money at stake. There's bonuses for coaches. There's high-profile games for players. It's a big business, and we've got some inconsistency. The NFL does a great job of doing all that. They balance everything out. They do a great job, right? The college football, and I won't even say NCAA because all they do is regulate scholarships and all that kind of stuff. They do nothing about the stuff, the schedules, et cetera. So there's you mentioned one, Matthew. There's there's schools like Arkansas State that have a better non-conference schedule than some of the Big Five schools, right? I mean, because they're after the money. It's a good deal. I applaud them for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Arkansas State's competitive now. I mean, they're a bowl team. They actually can play. I mean,
now,
that's not a cream puff game, right? I mean, it isn't. I mean, there has been some parity, but at the end of the day, and I singled Miami out probably unfairly just because Bethune-Cookman, Arkansas
no,
State.
it's fair. It's fair. It's Miami. Miami should be held at a higher standard because they've been at championship quality about once every decade, and it's been a decade. They should be back now. It should be back by now. They're in South Florida.
They've never won their division in the ACC. Virginia Tech's won 5 division titles in the same period. So, okay, enough said. But I'm looking
shots fired.
Okay, I'm looking at Pittsburgh. Penn State, Oklahoma State, non-conference. That's pretty stellar. I mean, Penn State's picked to finish first or second in their half of the league. Oklahoma State's picked to finish first or second in the Big 12. Oh my gosh, that's pretty tough out of the chute. I mean, that's just second and third games. And I'm just comparing it to other teams, and so it's a little bit. Now, I will say Wake Forest is on the same page. They play Presbyterian. They have to pray before it. Utah State and Appalachian State. Now that's not exactly a stellar non-conference, but it's Wake Forest. It's not Miami, But anyway, just saying. You'll see my blog next week. That whole you're right. The diapers, training pants, and big boy pants thing. So I take no favorites there, but Miami, I'll take a shot. But hey, Matthew, South Florida. San Jose State, Stony Brook, and Connecticut. Really? I mean, really?
Connecticut's in conference. Okay. That's in conference.
Well, I know, but they're going to play basketball, at that game.
Might be the same score. It might be the same score. We watch out.
They do play Illinois.
Hey! You gotta watch it there with South Florida. Remember, I mean, that team has been looking for, trying to get those games against the other bigger schools, and they were, to me, I mean, they were fortunate to have those home and home series against, Miami and Florida State. They can't get one with Florida because we all know that Florida's a bunch of cowards, but.
Basically.
At least, they're looking for those games like the Oklahoma game or Alabama. I mean, they've done that since, they started their football program.
I'll give them a pass because you're right. Those schools have difficulty, especially when they get better, right? I mean, as soon as they get any modicum of success, the other schools are going, I don't want any part of this because that's an upset in the making, right? I mean, that's what happens, right?
Yeah, I mean, USF was able to beat FSU and Doak Campbell, a few years back. So,
yeah, that was the end of that. So, anyway, it just and I think that and I guess the bigger picture is that the discrepancy in the quality of the schedules makes it more difficult for the committee to get it down to 4 teams, right? I mean, that's my point. I don't want to take a shot at any single school except Miami because I hate them. But anyway, but the bigger picture is, wow, how does the committee, solve this issue, right? I mean, how do they? And they, I think for the most part they've gotten it pretty right. The first year when they left TCU and Baylor both out, I'm not quite sure that was great. But since then, I think they've done a pretty good job. I mean, I think they have. So I'm going to give them, give some credit because they've done a tough job. I mean, they really do. Given this schedule, But if you look at who they put in there, all the teams they put in for the Final Four have all had a pretty good non-conference schedule, or or brutal conference schedule. And that's the other thing. The Big Ten, if you look at how the Big Ten does their non-conference schedule, like last year, Wisconsin had a brutal non-conference. Remember that we talked about the conference schedule? We talked about it. They played Ohio State, Michigan State, back to back to back, and 2 of them on the road. And you're going, holy crap! They had to play. There are three games against the other half of the league. We're all against the top teams in the other half of the league. Wow, that's hard to that's hard to ascertain how good they were. And of course, they didn't get to the finals. So because of that, so it's and I guess the other half of me, Matthew and James as well. But that's what makes it interesting. It gives us something to talk about and people listen to us, right? Because wow, it's interesting. It's not that straightforward. So I'll take the good with the bad on that.
Now, as far just taking a look, and that's the one thing. Like this year, Wisconsin, I think they have a much better chance this year because they don't have the same like insane schedule. They have FAU at home, and they start with Utah State at home. BYU, they go to BYU, which you don't know.
Yeah. And that's a quality game. Because BYU is pretty good. I mean, that's not a horrible
and BYU actually has a pretty again. They're a non-conference school. Besides their first game of the year, the second game is LSU. Then they got Utah, Wisconsin, Utah State, Boise State, Mississippi State, East Carolina, San Jose State, Fresno State, and then UNLV because they couldn't find any other schools that had state in it, evidently.
Yeah, well, yeah. Listen, if BYU goes 11-1, depending on who the loss is to, that's going to be a tough decision for the committee, right? Because their schedule now. The problem with BYU is their schedule's front loaded, so they're going to fall off the national radar late in the season because most of those games are like right, not so good. Yeah, Fresno, UNLV, Massachusetts, which is actually a high school somewhere in the area of Massachusetts.
I'm pretty sure UMass beat Florida last year, didn't they? Gave them a run for they came close.
No.
What?
Yeah, they might have come close.
No. What?
UMass didn't.
Hold on. Let me double check that. They either beat them or came really close to it. Who did UMass play? Yeah, it was Florida. Oh, never mind. Never mind. What?
Yeah. Massachusetts.
That was
is a very poor excuse for a football team.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, they shouldn't even be.
Yeah, they're a basketball school too.
Yeah.
Yeah, never mind. They were.
I
think they were winning. I think that's what it was. They were winning. But
they're independent. Yeah, they gave them a run, but their wins last year were against FIU and Wagner. Okay.
Now it wasn't even. They didn't score till the second. It was 10-7 going into the halftime, and then Florida couldn't score again till the fourth quarter.
Yeah, they were 2-10 last year. They're not a competitive program now.
You're right.
They do have 7 players back on defense, which now.
Whoa!
It's a bad defense.
Oh.
I'm not sure you want to pay 7 players back, but anyway, we'll see.
The Minutemen got 7 guys back. 7 insignificant guys back.
Hey, good news, bad news. You had a really bad defense, but most of it's back. Okay, so I'm not sure. I'm not exactly sure how that works. Right?
They're terrible, and most of them are back. So better luck this year.
And they're really experienced at being terrible. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure how that works. Okay, are you better for having that? I'm not sure. But
so anyway, what you're saying is there is a chance.
Yeah, it's like you got another shot. But anyway, but no. In all seriousness, the BYU thing. Now, their first 4 games. I mean, actually Portland State's not. It's an FCS school, but you got LSU, Utah, Wisconsin. I mean, they could make some noise, and they got Boise State and then Mississippi State later on. Yeah, they could make some noise, and that's going to give the committee some pause because that's a good schedule. I mean, but as I said, the end of it's not that great, and so unless one of those teams at the end has a better season, we think.
Jesus.
But so.
UMass.
Plus BYU, they won.
Who does their recruiting?
BYU won 8. Yeah, BYU won 8 of 9 to end last season. That's a team. That's a team to watch, right? I mean, that really is a team to watch. So we'll have to see about that. That's a team that's. As you notice, I've done some blogs on the first 4 weeks of the season, the big games, and BYU's in a couple of them because that's an interesting team to see how they come through that. Even though Mississippi State's not supposed to be great in the SEC, that is an SEC team, and Boise's Boise. I mean, they're a signature program, so they have some chances to make some noise early in the season and surprise some people. And we still don't know how LSU's going to be. I mean, Ed Orgeron's in his first season after being interim, that you want to catch a team early if you're going to catch them, and they get LSU early. Although it's in Houston, so it's ostensibly a home game for LSU. I mean, it's not very far, so we'll see about that.
UMass signed a 4-star. Oh, wait, never mind. That's basketball. I'm just surprised. No, because I was looking at the football roster, and it's like, no, they did. They did. Football, a 4-star athlete out of Tennessee. Why? Why would he do that? Shatar McClay. He's ranked 30th overall as an athlete, 4-star. He committed to UMass.
That's called couldn't get in academically anywhere else.
Yeah.
Anyway,
maybe.
Just a guess.
They have
transcript. Transcript. We don't care about transcript.
Birth certificate. Come on in.
Here's your test. What's 2 + 2? 3. Well, you're close. Come on in. You got within 1. We're good.
Oh, okay, I see.
Anyway.
He's 5'11".
That's the fuzzy math.
He's 5'11", 175 pounds. Even if he is, again, that sounds like he's probably like a running back, a slot receiver, or a defensive back at 5'11", 175 pounds.
He's actually 5'9", 155 because that's
probably
really what he is, right?
He had his cleats and pads on when they did the measurements.
I forgot to tell you, I changed my name because I still have 4 years of eligibility left. I'm going to UMass in the fall.
You know what? I think we should all go to UMass and ball out. Are you going to play quarterback, Kevin?
No, I'm going to play. I'm going to be like I'm like Edelman. I'll be like the Edelman.
A slot receiver. James, you're playing middle linebacker. I'm taking it, right?
Linebacker.
Yeah, you can play middle linebacker.
We could be like Bosch, Wade, and James. We could be like Bosch, Wade, and James and sell ourselves as a package deal.
I know. I think that's
what we should do.
I mean, they have. I'm wide out all the way. I'm going to be a wide out all the way.
Well, wait, you can't be a linebacker either, Matt?
No, my hands are way too good to be a linebacker. Can't waste good stuff. You know?
Well,
that's why
I'm short, but I'm
if you pour out a little liquor, make sure it's the house liquor and not top shelf. Just saying. Don't waste shit, you know? Is that wrong? I'm not pouring out, you know, Hennessy White for on the ground. That's just expensive. If you buy it in the US. If you buy it outside the US, like in the Dominican Republic, it's about the same price as all the other stuff. But all right, we got about 5 minutes left till we get to overtime. If people still want to join the show, 347-237-5539 is the number to call in. We only take calls up to around 10:30, and that's it. And then from there on, you can get communicate with us on social media at the CHT on Sports. If you're on YouTube, down in the comment section, just comment down there, and we'll read them. Getting tons of arguments down. That's fine. I'm fine with that. My kids getting arguments out there. You getting arguments down there. It's just second nature for me at this point. Hit the subscribe button. Wherever you are, hit like, subscribe, follow. And be sure to follow us here. I wanted to talk about the NFL and the potentiality of there being a lockout this next time around, as well as the kind of the new twist, I guess, to the National Anthem protests. And I have a remedy, if it even is really, if there needs to be a remedy of it anyway, a simple fix for it. I do want to get into here. I'll get into that in the overtime segment, but I have you on here, James. I wanted to get into a little bit of the fight this weekend because it was of such a historic magnitude, and I went off on a rant on Twitter this weekend, angry at ESPN, Stephen A. Smith, and Max Kellerman, just from the way that they handled the promotion of the fight that was their telecast, or really lack thereof. It was to put it in blunt terms, it was shit performance by them in a way of pushing people to this fight. Yes, I know it's a week before McGregor and Mayweather, but that's all the more reason to push this fight. It's all the more reason to push this fight, you know? You push Pacquiao Horn. Most people don't know. Most people that follow boxing really don't even know who the hell Jeff Horn is. Let alone you promoting the crap out of it. So
Stephen A. Smith don't even know who Jeff Horn is.
Stephen A. Smith doesn't know a lot of things, but he's willing to show it by his complaints. And the fact that he wasn't on the boxing telecast was great.
90 seconds.
We had about just got a warning here that got about 60 seconds if you want to call in 347-237-5539. You know, they put out their B team, which I'm fine with that because Lupe Contreras, who's friend of the show, he's been on here many times. He did the ring announcing for this fight, which is awesome for him. So happy for him that he was able to enjoy
60 seconds.
Doing that. But they didn't push the fight. I think there was so much more they could have done on the simplest levels. You know, I mean, I keep hearing throughout radio about Pacquiao. You're going to watch Pacquiao? You're going to watch? Yeah. Okay, cool. You pushed the shit out of the Pacquiao fight, and it got good numbers. So is it weird if you promote the fight that people watch? I think this was a huge missed opportunity, because they actually spent on ESPN that followed the fight. They
10 seconds.
spent more time on reporting on a cricket match, but not even the cricket match. The fans that were hitting a freaking blow-up soccer volleyball thing, beach ball, in the crowd, and the security took it away, and it was kind of a back and forth, and then they protested with all these ridiculous costumes, and then security joked about giving it back or not. They did more time on this stupidity than they did on all the fights, including the fight where someone joined the ranks of the undisputed and undefeated, which is a very rare few, and one of even a rare bunch of people that have unified a division. He has all 4 of the meaningful belts, and then the ring magazine belt too. So by all accounts, undisputed, undefeated, unified champ. Like, you can't get higher honors than that. So they miss out on this for what? So they can talk about Mayweather, a fight that they're not even broadcasting. They're not even doing the telecast for it. It's going to be on Showtime, pay-per-view, not on ESPN. You know, they literally they literally said, "Hey, this guy's girlfriend is so hot. She's so smoking hot," and they just neglected their hot girlfriend themselves. It's like,
well, I mean, I think that goes into what the move is for ESPN nowadays. I think, you know, they're more into that whole social media or whatever millennial or, you know, ticker type thing there. So, you know, a lot of the shows that they have now are basically highlights driven or, you know, social media driven. So they're looking for what people are talking about the most instead of covering everything. You see what I'm saying? So,
I agree.
While you do have a fight there that was for all of the major belts in the super lightweight division, that's not what people are talking about. That's not cooler talk, so to speak. They're not talking about Terrence Crawford and Julius Ndongo when of course, like, some people don't know who Terrence Crawford is, and they definitely don't know who Julius Ndongo is. They're going to be talking about, you know, the 2 biggest guys in combat sports, whether it's a mismatch in the boxing ring or not. They're still going to be talking about that. And so since that is pretty much, you know, now upon us, that's, you know, what's going to be talked about. I mean, shoot, you have a boxing match, so to speak, that people are saying is a quote unquote official boxing match that's supposed to be for the one of the super welterweight titles on the same night, and no one is talking about that. Yeah. So you see how much. Yeah. So you see now how big that Mayweather McGregor thing is. Even though a lot of people want to dismiss it, they're still talking about it.
Well, here's what I think. that I think that ESPN is missing out, and I think they're losing subscribers because they have decided that their commentators are the story, not the game action, and or the sports action. So when you watch Max Kellerman and Stephen A. Smith, which I hate that show, I can't even watch it. It's so absurd. It's so absurd to be. It's absurd because they don't talk about the real stuff, right? They're supposed to be. They're making themselves out to be the story. Well, sorry guys, you don't suit up. I don't suit up. You don't suit up. The story should be the action on the field, between the lines, on the course, on the court, right? And they're so negative and abusive and confrontational. It turns people off, right? And,
right.
Oh, by the way, the boxing match, not this last one on ESPN, but the one before that was in Australia. That
Pacquiao, Jeff Horn.
The Pacquiao Horn was in Australia.
Oh
August
my
2nd.
God! Oh, I'm sorry. Pacquiao got robbed. I mean, I watched that fight. Anybody in their right mind watches that fight. They know who won that fight, but you know why Horn won. But that was absurd. But there was no commentary on that. I mean, you got to look at the match, dissect the match. Give some commentary on that. Give some intelligence. Give some intelligent breakdown. Right? Do something that's not about yourself.
That's the thing. The funny thing is
they've created themselves as the show, right? As opposed to the sports action. So and so I don't actually begrudge Nick Saban last week when he goes, "Hey, you guys have all the answers. Why don't we even play the games? Because you guys obviously are the show, right?"
He's just being grumpy.
I thought
grumpy.
it was hilarious.
Oh, it was.
Because he's actually doing a job, right? I thought it was hilarious. But my point being that ESPN has lost touch with what people really want to, and that's why they're losing subscribers. That's a real numbers thing. That's not I'm not making that up, right? They're losing 1 million subscribers a month, kind of thing. It's a real thing because they're out of touch. And it's also too much. It's also too much media chasing too little content. You've got CBS Sports, you've got NBC Sports, you've got Fox Sports, you've got ESPN with 4 networks, radio.
Yeah.
Come on, guys. Right? It's
too much. But the thing is that we've talked about this in our various shows, but when you have specialty networks now that cover major sports 24/7, it's almost like little to no need for people to go to ESPN for that, because they used to do that. Right. But now you got the NFL network, so you don't really go to guys like that's why Chris Berman and Tom Jackson are not there anymore, because NFL Network does that 24/7. And so now, while you do have a few guys that are from the NFL that, are there for NFL Primetime or NFL Countdown now, it's not like how it was with Berman and Jackson,
You got the Golf Channel, right? I mean, if I want to do something, if I want to watch golf, if there's a big tournament coming up, I'm going to Morning Drive on Golf Channel, right? I'm watching those guys, right? I'm not trying to find some niche thing. I'm going to Golf Channel because those guys know golf. U.S. Open, tennis. I'm going to Tennis Channel, right? That's where I'm going. I'm not going to see some kind of random, And plus, they're making, as I said before, they're making themselves a story, and that's a no-no. You're right. I mean, in journalism, and I did a lot of journalism in college. The number one rule was you report the story. You don't become the story. And they're trying to be. And Stephen A. Smith I know he's a smart guy. I think he's a lot of intelligent things to say, but I can't stand him because he tries to make himself the story. He tries to make himself the story. And when we talk about here every week, we talk about the action that we're not the story. I mean, I'm not the story. The story is the action, or the athletes that have worked really hard to be the best at their craft. We talked about LeBron James and Michael Jordan, all that. We talk about them. We're not talking about us or our opinions. We're just sharing, some things about them.
Yeah.
And the thing is,
it's not about us.
Yeah, and the thing is too is that I think a lot of most of the things now, being in this age is like everything is accessible now. So more stories are about personal stuff than it is about on the field. So it's like, what's this guy doing at a Saturday night over in Club XS or anything like that? Or, here they are at a photo shoot and such and such. I'm like, we don't really need to know all of that. We don't need to, find out if they're doing a little article in GQ magazine. Let that be outside. We don't need to, cover all of that right now. Just cover what they're doing on the field or, during training camp or whatever it is.
Yeah, and all of us, contribute to Matthew's Polo Tooth on Sports, and I have my own blog, etc., and I contribute to other radio shows. We put our money where our mouth is. We don't talk about that stuff, right? I mean, I've never seen you write anything about that, James, or you, Matthew. We talk about what's influencing the actual results on the field or the court or the whatever. And I abide by that, and I stick by that. That's kind of a journalistic, integrity thing that I have. I don't really care, right? Because what I think people really care about at the end of the day is, did my team win? Did my guy do well? And the rest of it's just a bunch of crap. I mean, I that's how I feel. I mean, I really do.
Yeah.
And I think you guys share that because you don't write about that. If you did, you'd write about it.
It's a bunch of filler. It is a bunch of filler, and I have to acknowledge it. Yeah. I've tried to shy away for the most part on Colin Kaepernick on his. And I want to welcome those that are watching the overtime segment over on Facebook Live. I've tried to steer away from it. It's been so over talked about, and I think they've tried to take new approaches into it, and kind of want to segue into that, where it's not just kneeling, but it's praying now, and now it's a big deal because now white players are joining in, and it's just. And if the NFL didn't want the media to talk about it and didn't want it to happen, the simple fix is they wouldn't show it. They don't show streakers anymore. The same way they don't show like
or pass a rule.
Exactly.
NBA has a rule. Okay.
Yeah, or pass a rule.
NHL has a rule.
I mean, if you're not televising that portion of it, if you're not televising that part of the or just don't show the guys that are protesting. If you don't want to give notice to it, just don't put it on TV. But it's a hot button topic. It gets people talking about it. And listen, if you're one of the people, and I'm going to say this in the most loving, caring way, if you're one of those people listening to this show or whatever, or any show, and you say, I haven't watched a football game since Colin Kaepernick kneeled. You're an idiot. You're an idiot. So you're gonna, you're depriving yourself of watching football. If you're really a football fan and you decided you don't want to watch football because somebody's protesting, you got to be kidding me. You don't. I think a lot of those people are the ones that, they're lying to everyone and themselves. They really believe it, but they're watching the highlights. They're probably still in fantasy leagues and all this BS.
Hold on there, Matt. Because I can tell you that you are actually chatting with people that actually don't watch the NFL because of that reason. So
that don't.
My thing is that
hold on. Hold on. So you're saying guys in the group stop watching the NFL because Kaepernick kneeled?
Yes, that is correct. But that goes into
unpack that a little bit more. Okay, yeah.
Him.
So obviously it's deeper.
But that goes into something that's much deeper than that, because it's not even just about Colin Kaepernick in reference to him kneeling. You got to understand something. Professional leagues, there are some things that you can do and that you cannot do in professional leagues. And so for him to do something like that in the NFL, whether he being locked out because of that, that's one thing. But there's just some things that you cannot do as a professional athlete and, still be viewed the same way. There's been past examples of this, not just in the NFL.
Yeah. Okay.
So
let me
wants to speak their mind, they should be able to do that without penalty.
I agree. So are they boycotting it because he protested, or because teams aren't giving him an option to play? Like he's not getting a fair shake.
Most of it is because these other teams have signed other quarterbacks.
Okay, so I'm fine. That's understand. I get that reason. Why not? I get that. I don't necessarily agree. Right. But no. What I'm saying is the kneeling part. So it's not. They're not protesting. They're not protesting. They're not boycotting the league because he kneeled. They're boycotting the league because he protested, and now the league is seemingly having a problem with his freedom of speech, and they're colluding or blacklisting him from being in the league because of the protesting. Am I understanding that correctly?
Well, then on top of that, though, now you have other players doing the same thing now.
Yeah,
so
and there's still
what's going to be done to them.
Yeah. By the way, Michael Rose Ivy was the guy that got the attention in college football for doing it from Nebraska. I mean, he's in the league. He plays for the Bears. He's in the league. He didn't get drafted. He went undrafted, but I didn't think he would get drafted anyways. I mean, it was pretty heavy. It was a pretty heavy draft, especially for linebackers. He went undrafted, but he signed with the Bears. He made it to camp. So it's not about is he protesting or is he not protesting. A lot of guys have protested alongside them or on their own teams. So the fact that Colin Kaepernick protested and he's not getting a shake, it makes you wonder, why is he not getting a shake after being outspoken? Now, on the end for Kaepernick.
Well, I think it's Matthew. Yeah. I think it's pretty clear why he's not getting a shake. But here's the thing that I think is kind of astounding is, and I've been criticized for this, but I'm going to say it. Colin Kaepernick got criticized for exercising the very right that is exemplified by the flag.
Yes.
So from a logical perspective, it's like, okay, so you sing the national anthem, you respect the flag, you respect the Constitution. The Constitution says we have freedom of speech and freedom of expression, freedom of religion. Colin Kaepernick expressed all that by kneeling for the national anthem.
Well, actually, he sat for 2 games.
The rights that our forefathers fought for in World War II, and et cetera, et cetera. The battles they fought to protect those rights. He's being criticized for exercising his very rights. I don't get it. I think I don't care whether he kneels for the. I don't have a particular opinion on that. For myself, I stand for the national anthem, but that's a personal decision. I'm not going to try to impose my own personal views onto Colin Kaepernick. But he has a right in this country to do to not stand for the national anthem.
Yes.
He has that right, and he exercised that right. So what's the deal? Now, if I'm a college football coach, if I'm a pro football coach, and I've got a guy like Colin Kaepernick who's available, I don't understand why the Seahawks didn't go after that guy, because he plays exactly like Russell Wilson.
Well, yeah,
so,
they're saying.
I'll say to this. He's blackballed. They're blackballing him.
Pete Carroll said it's because he wanted to be a starting quarterback, and he wanted starting quarterback pay, and he didn't. He said also, he's like, I don't want to rob him of the opportunity of being a starting quarterback because he's going to be a backup here. But that's the other thing is, okay, so that goes by.
I understand that.
So that goes by. So you're looking at.
That's a football reason, right? That's a football reason.
Yes.
Right, that's a football reason,
and
I can buy that.
And it's in a respectful, somewhat. Miami. Oh, okay, I'm fine with Miami. He wasn't really ever considered in Miami. He was on the list, but so was Tim Tebow. In all fairness, but Jay Cutler was their main guy that they were interested in. Now one that
Gates was his guy.
The Ravens. The Ravens were the one that's the big issue, because they literally took a public poll. And this was public opinion on what they wanted to do. And the owner had some opposition to it, even though Ozzie Newsome, Harbaugh, they were all on board with bringing him on. And they didn't. So that's where the big issue is. And see, again, that's why I understand, like what you're saying, some of the guys from the group, the boycott of it wasn't his kneeling. It's the fact that he's now, because he expressed his rights, his First Amendment rights. That he then is now seemingly not getting in because obviously the other guys that have done it are either in the league or have gotten signed with teams or drafted, and it doesn't seem to be an issue, you know.
Michael Vick spent 2 years in jail, and he got another chance in the league. Are you kidding me?
Well, Michael Vick also decided to do things a bit different too. He did more. He did more to conform to. But that's the thing is, like,
but still, he went to jail. All Colin Kaepernick did was take a knee during the national anthem. Are you kidding me? Look, this has been blown so far out of proportion. It's not even funny. I mean, seriously, it really is. I agree with James or you. They don't show it on TV. Who cares? I mean, come on. This has been proportionally just exponentially blown out, and it's the nature of our country right now. It's like this. Oh, everything's a big deal. It's not a big deal.
Yeah,
it really isn't a big deal. They're making it a big deal, and the longer they go without signing him, and I understand. I don't know what his agent's asking for. His agent might be.
Well, I wouldn't say okay
on anybody, right?
On the sociological side, it is a very big deal culturally, and as a society, it is a big deal. But as far as where it pertains to football, it isn't a big deal, and it shouldn't be a big deal. That he protest and express his feelings, that should be a big deal at all, because that really has nothing to do with football. Because right now, whether you want to like it or not, he's one of the 32 best guys at that position on the planet right now. He's one of the 32 best, without question.
Did you watch the Browns last night? Did you watch the Dolphins the other night? Did you watch any of these preseason games where these guys they don't record?
And you see Browns fans. This multiple players kneeling was the line for the Browns fans. You have a shitty team that has shit brown uniforms for how long? And you'll endure it, and you're the dog pound, but a few guys kneel at a national anthem, and oh, that's it, we're done. Like, are you serious? Like, I don't get, like,
that's crazy.
I'm telling you, this is why I was saying it's moronic. You know, a guy protests, so you don't want to watch football. And what does that have to do with anything? That's what I'm saying on the other end, the boycott is a guy that can play football is not getting an opportunity, being qualified for it, being one of the 32 best at the position, not getting an opportunity seemingly because of his freedom of speech. So that's again, that's where I'm looking at. That's why I'm saying I understand one side more than the other. Either way, I'm looking at football. I want to see football players play football.
Hold on. Right. But contrast that, right, with the Ezekiel Elliott suspension, right? So you've got a guy who, okay.
Has the Cowboys lost any sponsors from Ezekiel Elliott's suspension?
No.
What about Greg? Have they lost any? James, have you seen anything of them losing money last year from Greg Harding signing? Did they lose any sponsors?
And that guy.
Nah.
That guy.
It's the Cowboys.
And that guy's a poor excuse for human being. I'm sorry, he is.
We can honestly look at somebody and say, you violated a human being, and be, but he could play. But a guy that violates dogs, no, that's inconceivable. And it wasn't even guys that violated dogs. It was a guy that managed an organization that ran dog-on-dog violence.
Right. Michael Vick spent more time in prison combined than Ray Rice, Greg Harlan, and anybody else in the NFL that's been in a domestic dispute, right? And Colin Kaepernick has faced more problems and more ridicule by kneeling to the national anthem than any of those guys that did domestic dispute, domestic violence. That, to me, is a societal issue. That, to me, is wrong. That's what we should be addressing. That's ridiculous, right?
Yes.
Nobody should have the right to strike any other human being, right? I don't care what the circumstances are. You just don't do it. And we're giving these guys a pass. And Colin Kaepernick has been ostracized for exercising his constitutional rights that weren't even against the rules of the league.
And all along,
explain that to me.
And all along, doing tons of good within the community, helping people get a second chance on finding a job.
Yes.
Helping people that are less fortunate find opportunities to better themselves and their communities and life. Again, still donating checks, still donating money and time. See, my big thing was when Cap sat. Again, he sat for 2 games, then he kneeled, and then it became a problem. A problem for people. Okay, you're going to do the protest. What comes next? What are you going to, is this for attention or what is it? It's clearly something he believes. And that's why, it's I mean, anybody want to protest, but if you want to add more validity, add consistency to your message. So he's added consistency in his action to the message.
And by the way, we're tearing down statues based on the same principle, and he gets ostracized.
Hold on just a second. Just a second. We have
but inconsistency.
We have some breaking news. This just in. Dana White is just announcing John Bones Jones has failed another drug test before UFC 114. I repeat, John Bones Jones failed another drug test before UFC 114. And
well, that can't be good.
Dana White is, if you could look at if you could,
not good at all.
Elated and happy, he's like to the op. It's like, to describe his face is utter like WTF. I don't need. What do I do with this guy? What do I do with him? I don't know. Utter disgust, confusion. It disappointment.
I guess you could stop drug testing. I guess you could stop drug testing, and then
maybe
then your problem's kind of resolved. But anyway,
yeah,
saying.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what they got to do. Stop the drug testing.
Man, I mean, that's like an absolute downer for them because I mean, you have John Jones, who's one of the most popular UFC guys that are out there that recently had a big matchup against supposed
Daniel
Cormier, and
yeah.
then after the fight. Yeah, and then after the fight, he calls out Brock Lesnar for, something, a fight that could have happened, around the same time next year that would have, garnered lots of buzz. Because when it comes to like pay-per-view success in the UFC, there's two guys that really brought it. One is Conor McGregor, and the other is Brock Lesnar. And so, with Lesnar now, with Lesnar actually having that suspension himself, being out of the UFC for a year because he got caught. That's why he went back to the WWE. And now here you go with one of the top 3 or 4 most popular guys in the UFC, yet again gets caught for drugs.
I've got to sign off here pretty soon, guys. I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Getting back to the action. So Floyd Mayweather today questioned Colin McGregor's ability to make his weight for Saturday's fight. James, what do you think? Do you think McGregor can make that weight, or is that going to be a factor for this weekend?
I mean, even if he doesn't make 154 pounds, it's not like they're going to, not go forward with the fight. I mean, it's not for any, belts on the line or anything like that. So if he doesn't make 154, then
he loses a shit ton of money.
There. The only thing I see is that what do they have as far as what happens after the weigh-in? Like how much can they weigh after the weigh-in? Because that may be a factor as well.
Does that mean McGregor gets to put on a little bit of weight before the bout? I mean, how does that work? I'm not sure how that works from the rules of boxing. I mean, how does that work?
Well, I mean, usually the thing is that when a fight is sanctioned for a certain weight class, all they got to do is basically fall at or below that weight the day before the fight. So if they're able to do that, then the day of the fight, if there's no type of set limit that they have to weigh before, right before the fight, then they can weigh anything they want. So, like for example, if a fighter has to fight at 154 pounds, then they got to weigh 154 pounds on Friday when they do the weigh-in. But that Saturday when they have the fight, they can weigh anything they want. They could weigh 170 pounds. They could weigh, 164 pounds. It doesn't matter.
Let me ask you this, James. 93% of the bets so far have been placed on Colin McGregor because his odds are so high. Do you think there's any chance that Colin McGregor wins this fight against Floyd Mayweather?
Nah. I don't think it's going to happen. I think it's going to be like a KO or TKO within 6 rounds for Floyd Mayweather. And on the books, I don't think that the sports books will want to take that type of a loss.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to take a big win if Mayweather wins. They're going to reap big because I think what is he like a 1 to 5? I mean, you can't win any money betting on Mayweather, right? I mean, that's why all the money's on McGregor, right? You can't.
Right.
You can't.
You win like what is it?
If you get
$20 on 100 or something like that.
If you bet 100, you're going to win $10.
Yeah.
If you bet $100, you're going to win $10, right? Something like that. Is it
well, now it might be 1 to 10 now, but like as far as like a huge bet that came through weeks ago, the Maloof brothers put down $840,000 for Mayweather. And they would in turn get around $140,000 to $160,000 back with that if Mayweather won the fight.
Mm-hmm.
So they skew the odds a little bit, but yeah, any regular bettor is not going to go on Mayweather. They're going to put down 10 to win $550 or $500 or something.
Right.
That's how it's going to work, right? Yeah.
Right.
That's why all that money's going on. Yeah. Giving up.
Yeah.
Clean. That's clean. Let's put it. Okay. That's just one of your opinion because I don't see McGregor. I don't see McGregor winning this thing unless he gets a lucky. But nobody's gotten a lucky punch on Mayweather in 49 fights, and so and he's not the guy to do it, right? I mean, he doesn't box.
Well, I wouldn't say nobody's gotten a lucky punch. People have gotten away with getting lucky punches and it not resulting in a win.
Right.
I'll go with that. I mean, there's been 3 guys that have had laid decent leather on him. He didn't get counted for knockdown on one, and then another one he basically held the guy, and the ref was like, "All right, yeah, I'll allow that. Yeah, that's cool, I guess. Whatever."
Three guys in 49 fights, all of them boxers, and McGregor's not a boxer. So I know that there's a lot of interest in this, just from the standpoint of they've hyped it, but I don't think the pay-per-view numbers are as high as they had hoped. But they're still going to make gobs of money, right? They're going to make lots of money,
right?
And good for them. I mean, okay, I'm not going to begrudge anybody. We all like to make money. I don't begrudge them at all. If they've done what they can, and Mayweather's maximized his value, I'm not buying the fight myself. If somebody wants to have a fight party, I can pay $10 and show up. I probably will. I do have some interest in it, but I was just curious about, James, your take on it, being a boxing guy, what you really think the chances are. And I don't see a big shot, but who knows? It's just.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see it being that competitive unless they try to do something the first 1 or 2 rounds or so, but then after that, Floyd will make his adjustments and then basically blow him out.
I mean, he'll do what he does, right? He's a defensive fighter, so he's
It's but I think
we know what the fight's going to look like, right? You know what the fight's going to look like.
Well,
at the end of the day.
That's where the debate is. Is it going to be competitive? Is it going to be entertaining? But competitive, no. Entertaining, yes. I think it's going to be entertaining, and I actually see this fight looking a lot like Mayweather-Maidana 1. I'm almost certain Floyd's going to give him opportunity to hit him against the ropes where he's blocking it, and that's where the crowd really gets drawn into it, where they get the rope-a-dope action is where they get excited because they feel like he's getting some shots in. He may even win a round or 2. So, the prop bets are really the most attractive thing here. Can Conor McGregor winning a round, Conor McGregor winning 2 rounds? The prop bets are really where all the action is at. If you're looking to try to make money on the fight gambling, Kevin,
do you think it's fixed? Do you think it's fixed?
Fixed?
Do you think the fix is in that Mayweather will let him win a couple rounds, and the fix is in saying, well, I'm going to let you do this, I'm going to let you do that. End of the day, you got to let me win. And the second question, James, is should this count? Like the record.
I don't know about
the 49-0 Rocky Marciano streak is on the line here. Should this count?
Well, all right. Two things. The thing about the over-unders, I don't know, like how much, people who gain or lose in reference to those over-unders is basically the straight-up bets that, kind of like bring in the most money as far as like bets are concerned. I don't know if there was a lot of people that, put in for the fight going under 6 rounds or something like that, but that was like the most notable thing about, over-unders in reference to this particular fight. Now, as far as like the fight counting, it still counts, but my thing is that the whole 49-0, 50-0 thing is overblown. There's been guys that have, won more than 49 consecutive fights, or, probably retired, with more than 49 wins or whatever it is, even though, one guy had, one draw. They were 51-0-1. But the thing about this is that they just, it's just something that's for marketing. The thing with Conor McGregor, having his first professional fight, yes, it should count on two fronts. Because number one, with this being the whole thing about boxing versus UFC, right?
Yeah.
Back in the day when James Toney went from boxing to UFC, to fight, and he fought Randy Couture, that fight counted for Randy Couture and James Toney. So Couture has that win on his record for MMA. So on the flip side, it should count for Floyd Mayweather. And on top of that, there have been multiple boxers over the course of the history of boxing that have had fights against guys that had their debut fight while, they've been a professional for almost, 10, 15 plus years. They already had like 60 fights in their career. So
yeah, just a quick reference.
If it's licensed, it counts.
A quick reference, real quick. James. Hold on.
I mean, that was
hold on a second, Kevin.
Question. I wasn't trying to impose anything editorial on my part. I was just curious because I don't follow it that closely, and to me, it is a curious feeling. So it is sanctioned, right? It's sanctioned by the Nevada Boxing Association.
Yeah.
It's under boxing rules. Now, what about them allowing the 8-ounce gloves versus the 10-ounce gloves for that weight class? What do you think about that?
Oh, real quick.
That was a rarity that they would be able to do that.
Real quick. Let me give a reference for the listeners real quick on the last thing you were saying before you highlight that. And that's James Bell, the editor for boxing for the Cold Hard Truth on Sports, and contributor for college football, and the host of the Boxing Source radio show. It's every Sunday from 7:30 to 8:30 here on Blog Talk Radio on the GoLong Media channel. What he was referencing before with Randy Couture and James Toney was the UFC 118. That's almost 100 fights ago of those specials from UFC. But that's the reference that he was talking about there. Go ahead and again talk about the and I'm gonna piggyback off that about the weight of the gloves. James.
No, about in reference to what?
A reference to the weight of the dropping the weight of the gloves.
So the thing about that is that, I mean, Mayweather, is known for having brittle hands, and he hasn't really, had many knockouts once he moved up to, 140 or 147 pounds. So he kind of like, goes for the decision a lot, or has a defensive, route or, defensive stance in a lot of his fights, is because he can't really do what he wants to in reference to offense is concerned. If you compare his career, at welterweight and super lightweight to when he was at 130 and 135 pounds, at 130, 135, he was a lot faster, a lot quicker in his feet, a lot quicker with his hands, and threw a lot more.
Yeah.
But
and he was,
when he came
and he used 8-ounce gloves in those weight classes, right? Those were the lighter gloves, right?
Yeah, those usually were the lighter gloves. Yeah.
Yeah. So to go to 8-ounce gloves for this fight isn't a real big deal for him, because he's fought 35, 37, 38 fights at 8-ounce gloves in his career. I don't know the exact numbers, but it was a substantial portion, right?
It's what he's trying to do with the spin he's trying to put on it is, if Conor McGregor has such a puncher's chance and we use the lighter gloves, which would signify that potentially there's less padding, which isn't necessarily the case at all. Because you can redistribute the padding. Again, Maidana, if you look back at Mayweather Maidana 2, Maidana tried to reconfigure the padding in his gloves, and Floyd personally went over there and was like, yeah, you're not using these gloves to fight me. And so he had to change gloves the night of the fight. So he had to put on different gloves the night of the fight, some backup gloves. because he was concerned that the padding in the knuckle area was manipulated. But yeah, the lighter gloves for the lighter weight classes is something, like James said, he's done for a significant number of fights. But the spin he's trying to get on it in this fight is that, hey, I can go ahead and fight him with lighter gloves, and if he has such a puncher's chance, then he could get me. And he's tried to put out there a lot of propaganda that, I'm not what I used to be. I've lost a few steps. I reckon I'm not as good as he wants people to believe that, he's trying to sell that he's not as good as he once was, which is going to be true facing professional boxers at the top of his sport and his weight classes. But when it comes to fighting somebody that's making a debut that is nowhere near the same skill level, although I don't, were you able to talk much about Paulie Malignaggi's comments a couple weeks ago, James?
No. No. I mean, it had like a little small segment about, what happened there with the video, but I mean, with Malignaggi, I think his whole ordeal was he was trying to get into the whole thing about helping Conor McGregor out or whatever it is. But I mean, he should have. I thought he got warned by Chris Algieri, because Algieri was part of the camp there for Conor McGregor as well, and he had a bad taste in his mouth dealing with Conor McGregor there. So it's like, well, if you know about that with Chris Algieri, why are you really, having a little fuss here about what happened to you? Because that should have been something that you should have seen coming.
TMZ just reported about just before the show, about an hour before the show, that things got real heated between Conor McGregor and Paulie Malignaggi at a fight media event in Vegas today, again, about 5 hours ago. Paulie Malignaggi got right in his face and teased him and taunted him. So it's obviously there's no love lost there. And yeah, like you said, Chris Algieri went in and said that, there was an issue with some of the there was another UFC fighter. I'm gonna have to pull that up. Former UFC fighter.
But Matthew and James, though,
Ted.
How do you separate the hype from the reality, right? Because this is an event, right?
Yes.
That's all this is.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yes.
Right.
Like I said, this is a
manufactured event, and so.
Well, it's not so much. I don't think it's so much as manufactured
all this stuff.
as if it's so heavily weighted on one side than the other. I mean, the odds makers are willing, essentially, with their odds of Conor McGregor where he's at. I don't think his odds are as good as they're giving him, but they have to make the odds attractive enough to where they could stand losing money if the worst happened.
Oh.
Well,
and by the way, the only thing that Vegas is trying to do is to balance both sides of the money so they don't lose, right? I mean,
that's why you see the big bets go in.
Like when the odds come out, like when the odds come out and they make the Patriots 7-point favorites, and the line moves to 9.5. That doesn't mean that the Patriots are 9.5 points better. It just means that there's more money on the Patriots. And that's
right.
All that is. I mean, it's a business thing. This has nothing to do with what's happening on the field or on the court or what you really think is going to happen. This is a business decision based on the odds makers. And so the fact is, they've got to make the line. The reason they had to make the line 1 to 10 on Mayweather is because nobody in the right mind is betting on McGregor unless you're going to make a lot of money, unless their $10 can reap them a fortune. Nobody thinks McGregor's winning this fight, right? No one in the right mind. And so that's all that's about. And so the hype about this thing, I mean, this is an event. They're trying to promote pay-per-view. They're trying to get their $99. And this is what it's all about. I mean, the whole Meg Johnny thing, is that real or not? We don't know, right? It's like a horse race. It's like, oh, you get the favorite, and oh my gosh, he came in fifth. I bet on him, and then yeah. Anytime there's gambling involved, I'm skeptical. Okay, I mean, and in this case, I'm highly skeptical of this entire thing because I have no idea. Mayweather has made a fortune betting on himself, right?
Yeah.
A large part of his fortune is betting on himself. Now, there's been movies, there's been things where people bet on the other side. What's to say Mayweather has to put $10 million on McGregor and tank the fight and goes away with $100 million? Now, you tell me that that's not a possibility because Mayweather's all about money. The odds on this fight are so insanely in the other direction.
I mean, but my thing is, if you know that you're such an overwhelming favorite, there's got to be some way that even if you put any type of money against yourself, that someone is going to find out. So I don't know if Floyd Mayweather would even take that type of risk to like bet against himself just so he could, figure out a way to lose the fight.
How many guys can Mayweather give $1 million to bet on him and give him even half of it? I mean, listen, I'm a skeptical son of a gun because when it comes to money, people go to great lengths and trust me, there's a lot of money around this event. And this is Mayweather's last shot. I mean, James, who's he going to fight? Who could he actually beat in his weight class? I mean, he beat Pacquiao, who was like 75 years old in Mexican dog years, right? I mean, come on, that was a lame fight. He beat him. After this, who's he got left? This is his last shot to go with a big payday. He's going to take away probably $200 million from the pay-per-view because McGregor's going to get like 28 cents, and Mayweather's going to get $200 million, and he bets on himself, tanks the fight, goes into the sunset. It's not a real fight anyway. Who cares? He can justify it all he wants. What the heck? I'm just saying. I'm skeptical.
That's the whole skeptical thing going on. It's just, I mean, this is all, it's mostly a business move because, I mean, after he got his Showtime deal done, I mean, he made his money. He fought who he wanted to fight. He fought, the guy that people didn't think he would fight. And so once he did that, it's like, there's nothing left for him to prove in the ring. There.
Exactly. So why even take this fight? This is
money.
This is like exactly. So if it's all about money, then tank the fight and make like gobs and gobs of money. I mean, the guy's got $1 million.
No, that would be grand robbery. Someone would have to get something on him if they did that.
The guy can just. We're talking about double down. The guy can 10 times down. I'm just saying. Listen, I'm not disparaging Floyd Mayweather, although it's difficult to do that because he's disparaging himself more than anybody else actually can because the guy's a jerk. But I'm just saying. I mean, I'm skeptical. Listen, the fights in Vegas, boxing's James, I know. I love the sport. I love the sport in its pure form, but oh my gosh, it's a messy sport, right? It's not clean. I mean, we know that. But now, I would love to think that Mayweather's going, I can go 50-0. I don't care about the money. I'm just going to go box my best, and I'm going to give it my best shot, and I'm going to beat this guy. Yeah. Well, I'd love to think that, but
But that's not the point. I say it in my show every single week. I say it in my show every single week. The point of boxing is to hit and not get hit. I mean, you have guys that, yeah, they have this moniker of being a blood and guts warrior and going all out and things like that. But when it's all said and done, when that blood and guts warrior is struggling to, walk, 2 or 3 years later after they retired, then where are those people that supported them, while he was in the ring,
And
so,
and by that token, by that judge, by that standard, Mayweather's the best, right? Because he hits and doesn't get hit, right? That's all
Yep.
it is, right? It's as simple as that. It may be boring, but he hits enough anyway and doesn't get hit. And so I'm hoping that's what we see Saturday night. I really do. I'm hoping he comes out and fights like he's capable of, because if he does, he's going to win the fight. And we'll see how McGregor does. But I do have this skepticism. I hate the cynicism. But when there's money involved and Floyd Mayweather's in it,
hey, that's part of it. It's just watching the fight. You never know what's going to happen.
Oh my! And I've been another guy. I mean, we've seen it.
And you know who?
About it, right?
Here's the crazy thing though. On August 26th, when this fight happens, the biggest loser of the night will not be Conor McGregor, Floyd Mayweather. It'll be Miguel Cotto, because he's fighting the same night at the same weight division, or one division up.
Yep. No, it's the same weight class.
Is it? He's fighting. I thought he was fighting at super welterweight.
Where's he fighting?
No,
Yeah, it was the Sergio's belt.
Where's he fighting? Where's that fight?
It's in California.
Yeah.
Oh, it's not even an undercard. It's a separate fight.
It's going to be on HBO.
It'll be on HBO. For those of you that aren't buying a fight, that would just want to tune into HBO.
Okay. Let me ask this then, from a media perspective and from a HBO perspective. What the hell are you guys thinking? I mean, why do you put that fight up against a spectacle? I mean, I can't call it anything else, right, James? I mean, this is a spectacle.
But here's the thing. No, they got. So, for one, I don't know why HBO accepted the fight anyway. It's Miguel Cotto against somebody that really isn't a competitive guy at super welterweight.
Yoshihiro
it's on HBO.
Kamegia. He's a
Kamagai. Yoshihiro Kamagai. And HBO over the past 2 years has not really been interested in televising boxing matches on their regular network. They want to do pretty much everything on pay-per-view. So with them, they got this fight card that's going to be in Carson, California. And then a couple weeks later, that's when they announced that Floyd Mayweather, Conor McGregor would be on the same date. So so HBO, Miguel Cotto, Golden Boy Promotions, all of them are going to lose lots of money.
So yeah, that makes no sense. I mean, come on, that makes sense. That's like putting the Arena Football League championship up against the Super Bowl. Why would you do that? I mean, why would you do that? That makes no sense. Anyway, but I'm sorry. I'm trying to inject logic into the equation. Maybe that doesn't work very well.
Well, in their defense, at least it's two boxers that are professionals.
Okay.
Just, I don't have anything else to defend it with. That's all I got. I can't. And I haven't even seen the undercard for that fight. I don't know if I feel worse for the guys on the undercard or the guys in the main event. Because the guys on the undercard, gosh. Speaking of guys on undercards, Saturday, I got to give a shout out to Steven Nelson, man. He's been so creative with his ring entrances. He decided to go with the Hannibal Lecter mask and a straitjacket and be rolled to the ring on a dolly. Now, I said he should have taken it a step further and went down the stairs way Bud did and went through the crowd. But he said it was on a dolly, so he couldn't do that. But I thought him being on the dolly going downstairs made it much more interesting. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. But shout out to Stephen So Cold Nelson for another creative ring entrance.
Goodbye.
So, but that does it for us over on Blog. All right, that does it for us over on Blog Talk Radio. For those of you still tuned in over on Spreaker, on Facebook Live, on YouTube Live, Google Hangouts, syndicated, simulcasted. That is going to do it for the show tonight. So be sure to tune in next week. Download the Spreaker app, download YouTube, Google Hangouts. You can get it there, all on apps. You don't have to go to a website. But if you want to and listen to it live, you can go to blogtalkradio.com. Listen for its first 2 hours. Unabated. You can call in 347-237-5539. Save it in your phone for next week. Tune in. I don't have the schedule up if the guys are going to be on for Take This L tomorrow night or not. They've been on a hiatus, so I don't have the schedule up in front of me. The new schedule for them just yet. But on Sunday, you will get the Boxing Source from 7:30 to 9:30. Hosted by James Bell, we just heard a couple minutes ago. He's the host of that show. He's also the editor of the boxing portion of the Cold Hard Truth on Sports. There's tons of articles up over there, keeping up on that. So that's all I got for you. Go ahead, follow the show at the CHT on Sports. Follow me at Matt Long Sports. It's been great. It's been real. And I'm out.